You are Locked On Mets Postcast, part of Locked On Sports New York on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The New York Mets will not go quietly. The New York Mets season will continue as there is a Game 6 Sunday in LA. Welcome in to this very positive, very upbeat edition of the Locked On Mets Postcast. I am your host, Chris Schubert. Gather around, everybody. Grab your favorite drink. Grab your favorite snack as we celebrate a victory edition. Haven't had one of these in a couple of days, but we celebrate the New York Mets keeping their season alive, doing so via an offensive barrage, and they complete step one of what is a three-step plan to come back, win this series, and punch their ticket into the World Series. This episode of the Locked On Mets Postcast brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to win $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. We laid it out last night in the postcast after the Mets lost Game 4 to drop to a 3-1 series deficit in this series. We made it very simple. You have to win on Friday. You have to force things back to LA, where Sean Manaea is going to be on the mound against the Dodgers in what is likely going to be a bullpen game. Advantage Mets, pressure on the Dodgers, and then from there, you can force a Game 7 where all bets are off. Well, the hardest part of that trio to accomplish is the first one. And it is that last game at Citi Field, and the New York Mets were able to deliver in a big way, defeating the Dodgers 12-6. It was a bumpy ride. It was not all comfortable, even though it probably should have been. But the New York Mets season will not end on home field. They will play at least one more baseball game, and they have forced to make sure that the Dodgers plane that will be leaving, going back towards LA to Dodger Stadium, they're going to be followed, because it will be the Mets charter that will be following them. Although during the broadcast, they talk about the radio broadcast, at least what I was listening to, the Mets are leaving tonight. So maybe they are leaving first. Who knows? But the Mets will be following the Dodgers in some capacity back to LA for Game 6 on Sunday. It was a very early start for this team. It was a 3-run home run by Pete Alonso in the first inning of this game. The Mets jumped out to a 3-0 lead. The Dodgers were able to square a run back in the second off of a wild pitch to make it 3-1. But David Peterson worked out of a jam there, and it was a third inning barrage by the New York Mets. And it was a double by Starlin Marte, who had a huge game, to make it 5-1. Francisco Alvarez, who also had a massive game, he singled to make it 6-1. A Francisco Lindor triple made it 7-1. And then Brandon Nimmo, who just keeps on playing through all of the injuries and the adversity that has been facing him this offseason, this postseason, he made it 8-1. Andy Pages, who became a bit of a thorn in the Mets' side in today's game, hit a homer to make it 8-2. The Mets got 2 back in the bottom part of the inning to make it 10-2. The Dodgers in the 5th and 6th drew 4 runs back via a Pages home run and a Mookie Betts home run to make it 10-6. And then you started going through all of the different permutations of how the Mets were going to get the number of outs, knowing that they didn't have Jose Butto tonight. They probably didn't have Phil Maton tonight. They didn't have Young tonight. They didn't have Tyler McGill tonight. They used David Peterson as the starter. So the options were very limited. Not sure they wanted to use Senga in this game. So Carlos Mendoza had to very much maneuver his way, smoke and mirrors his way through this game. They got 2 more runs via a McNeil sacrifice fly and a Marte single, and that leads us to the final score being 12-2. The Mets put together 14 hits in the game, and they absolutely get after Jack Flaherty after the first game in this series where they faced Jack Flaherty. He shut them down over the course of 7 innings. Seeing him for a second time, they were all over him. And I think that first at-bat that Pete had against Flaherty was proof of how this game was going to go for the New York Mets, because they threw him all junk low, but they didn't get it low enough. They didn't get it away enough, and he was able to make the adjustment, something we had been asking of this group, of this offensive lineup to do throughout this series, is make the adjustment. Don't have so much swing and miss. See what they're doing to you. And seeing Flaherty a second time, they were able to get the necessary adjustments in place, and they were able to score a bunch of runs. And the offense was a little different tonight. Carlos Mendoza, with his back against the wall, made a number of lineup changes. He moved Brendan Nimmo up to the 2 spot, flipped him and Mark Vientos, put Jesse Winker in as the DH. And I think it's very clear at this point that Jesse Winker, if there's a right-handed pitcher on the mound, should be the DH for the New York Mets. He's bad against lefties, But if it's not a lefty, Jesse Winker needs to be in there. The back isn't a problem. He had a bunch of great at-bats today in this game, went 2 for 3 with a walk. He was great. He needs to be in here. JD Martinez isn't providing this team anything. If you want to get Nimmo off his feet in the field and make him the DH, I could understand that. But if you believe that Brandon Nimmo, and Carlos Mendoza said as much, that Brandon Nimmo gives this team the best defensive configuration, then you know what? Jesse Winker needs to be the DH then, because he provides the most pop and the most thump in that spot of the lineup, and he can just put the ball in play a lot better than what JD Martinez was doing. And then Jeff McNeil was in at second base. Didn't have a hit in this game. One of the few Mets in the lineup that didn't have a hit, but had 2 RBIs via 2 sac flies, and something the Mets definitely could have used in the earlier games of this series, specifically in the Citi Field homestand portion of it, because they missed opportunities with bases loaded and nobody out, where a contact hitter like Jeff McNeil, who could put the ball in play, could have gotten them some runs instead of going 0 for. I mean, we talked about it yesterday. All the men left on base. They left 8 on base again today, but 5 for 9 with runners in scoring position. One of the biggest culprits last night was their biggest supporter tonight. Starlin Marte was 2 for 3. Nimmo added a hit. Alonso 1 for 1. Alvarez 1 for 2. The big boppers in this lineup came through with the big hits when they needed it the most, and that allowed the Mets to get out to an early lead, ride the wave of this game, and ultimately push the series back to LA and pushing things back onto the Dodgers. And listen, I might be being extremely positive. You might call me a homer, but I truly think that by winning this baseball game, the Mets have completely shifted the pressure back to the Los Angeles Dodgers, because the Dodgers don't want to play a game 7. The Dodgers understand that they're throwing a bullpen game more than likely in game 6. They know that they're going to face Sean Manaea. All of the pressure is on the Dodgers now to close this out. And under Dave Roberts, they've kind of handled these situations in the past. I think they're 7-0 in their previous 7 games like this, where they had a 3-1 lead and they were able to close it out. They have done a good job in these closeout environments. So the New York Mets showing their resiliency. Just when we thought the team couldn't get up off the mat one more time, they did. And you should have anticipated that they were going to have some level of response, potentially their last home game of the year. They certainly weren't going to allow their season to end at home, and they were able to get things done. We need to discuss what was the middle part of this game, because Carlos Mendoza didn't have a lot of options, and the options he did have weren't very good. The trust tree, the trust triangle of pitchers is getting smaller and smaller by the moment. And so we will discuss the lack of options and what that means for the future of this series, because there's another game on Sunday. We will get into that here on the other side. Guys, ever feel like you need a little boost in the bedroom? It's time you stop worrying about your performance and get Hims, so you can feel confident knowing you can get hard and stay hard whenever you're in the mood. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works for you. Start your free trial. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable, compoundable products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Prices vary based on product and subscription plan. Make sure you are subscribed to the Locked On Mets New York, or Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel for these Locked On Mets postcasts. We know when this next game is going to take place. It is going to be a 5:08 start. And I have to tell you, I'll be completely transparent with the listeners, with the viewers here. The plan was to do the Locked On Jets postcast because the Jets play on Sunday Night Football this week. The Mets, Game 6, season on the line. I got to think that you and I will be here once again doing a Locked On Mets postcast, but me and the powers that be will discuss what the right course of action is, where I am needed the most, but I guarantee you it'll be right here with the Locked On Mets postcast. So make sure you are subscribed. You turn on that notification bell so you are notified when we go live after each and every one of your New York sports teams are in action. I've got you covered on the Mets and Jets side of things. Jay Berman's got you covered on the Giants side of things. And if you are so inclined to keep tabs on that other New York baseball team, he has you covered and will have you covered later on tonight with the Yankees. It was David Peterson who, the last time he made a start for the New York Mets, it was the first of what was a series of most important games for the New York Mets. He started a brisk Sunday afternoon in what feels like decades ago against the Milwaukee Brewers, and he delivered this team the most important start, at least up to that point of the year. 7 innings, gave the Mets everything they needed in order to win that baseball game and start what was a magical run that has led us up to this point. I don't think any of us are going to confuse what David Peterson did today with that start back in the end of September. 3 2/3, 6 hits, 2 runs, 2 earned, 4 walks, 3 strikeouts. The walks were a problem again for the starting pitching and gave up the 1 home run. Look, it's a lot easier to have that stat line be given in by your starting pitcher, which has become kind of the norm right now for the New York Mets, because it just seems like they've run out of gas. They've just spent so much emotional energy, so much adrenaline, so much of their willpower has been dragging themselves to this point and having all of these miraculous, magical moment after moment after moment, that it just feels like this team as a group is wearing down, at least on the pitching side of things. And David Peterson turned in what we have seen from the starters the last couple of nights. But the difference is the Mets spotted him 8 runs over the course of the first 3 innings. So you can tolerate needing to go to the bullpen in that spot in the 4th inning when your offense has spotted you 8 runs and you had an 8-1 lead going into the 4th inning. And then it was Reed Garrett, it was Ryan Stanek, and it was Edwin Diaz. And we talk on this program quite a bit about the trust tree or the trust triangle, which is the relievers that are most trusted. And there is one person that absolutely deserves his flowers. We are talking about the lack of options, but I am not going to go into the lack of options that they had tonight without discussing what have become the 2 most important options in this bullpen. One has quietly been it all year, and the other, I think tonight, has pushed himself back into that trust tree with what he was able to do tonight. The first, Ryan Stanek, who has never given a team more than 6 outs in a postseason appearance, and he gave the Mets 7 very important outs in tonight's game. You tip your cap. He only gave up the 1 run. It was a solo shot. It didn't do any damage. He struck out 4. His stuff looked great. He's been here before. He's done this before. He knows how to get it done. And that's exactly what Ryan Stanek has delivered here in the postseason over and over and over again. And he is very much a part of what is a very small, I joke about the trust tree. And at one point I texted a buddy throughout the series and I said, the trust tree is now becoming the trust branch because it's really only like one person. And it was Ryan Stanek for the longest time. I'm going to add another branch and it's back to being a trust tree because Edwin Diaz came in, and I don't know if you felt it, but I certainly felt it. That was the old Edwin Diaz tonight. The slider, to quote my friend who texted me when it was going on, was sliding. The slider was sliding. The fastball looked good. He looked confident. And there is something about a team having a moment like this after getting kicked around for a couple of days and getting blown out in back-to-back games to have this type of performance to build the confidence. I think Ryan Stanek's confidence is through the roof. Very happy that they're going to have a day off tomorrow for Stanek. And then for Edwin Diaz to get 6 outs and to look dominant, allow just the 1 hit over the 2 innings and look really good. Yuki in the chat says, we did it, Mets magic. When things looked grim, our hitters came out hot. Exactly right, Yuki. This team, I had a lot of people ask me today how I felt. I had a lot of people ask me how I was feeling going into the game today. And I was honest, and I'll be honest with you. I thought that while we laid out the plan last night and I gave the rallying cry, it's easier said than done. And I felt like the season really ended last night, and whatever happened today, I was just going to accept the results of. But this team, they once again proved to us all that you cannot count them out. You cannot rule them out. They will get themselves up off the mat. They will dust themselves off, and they will bounce back. Now, they can't bounce back anymore. They have to continue the counterpunch for the next 2 days in LA. We'll focus one day at a time. They have to do so on Sunday evening against the Dodgers. Now, the Mets were in a bit of a pickle tonight because they did not have, or this afternoon, however you want to describe it, they did not have Tyler McGill. They did not have Jose Budo. It didn't really feel like they had Phil Maton. They didn't have Young. And there were discussions about when Kodai Senga would or wouldn't be available in the game tonight. And it certainly felt Like if Carlos Mendoza was going to use Kodai Senga, it was going to be in a massive blowout either direction. He was not going to ask Kodai Senga to get key outs in a key spot in this game, to ask him to be a reliever for the first time in his big league career. And I don't know if he was a reliever before he came to the United States, but not the spot, not the moment, not the opportunity to try to ask for 6 big outs from a starter that you're going to ask to be a reliever. If it's the score's a little different, if the situation is a little different, you could think about it. But that didn't seem to be something that Carlos Mendoza immediately wanted to go to. And let's give credit where credit is due. We gave Carlos Mendoza a lot of heat yesterday on the show for the lineup. I don't know if he was listening to us. He might have been. But he understood, back against the wall, my offense isn't performing. I got to make some changes. He took out the defense for Jose Iglesias, and he put Jeff McNeil in there. And I thought it was funny. The first inning of the game, I believe it was the first batter, a ball gets hit to an area where Jeff barely missed it. And I thought to myself, I don't know if you thought to yourself, but I thought, man, Jose might have gotten to that one. And you thought, oh no, like they make the change for offense and they immediately could find themselves into some danger. David Peterson obviously worked out of that jam in the first, and then the Mets were off to the races at that point. But he listened, and he made the adjustments with the season on the line to get more oomph, to get more potentially lightning in the bottle into his lineup via Jeff McNeil being in there. Tyrone Taylor was back in there, putting Winker in there as the DH, moving Nimmo and Vientos around, like just doing little things, but also making some big wholesale changes that help this team play really well. You'd have to think that that's the group that you're going to see on Sunday. Again, rolled out in a pretty similar fashion, depending on what the Dodgers do with their rotation. And then he pushed all the right buttons with the bullpen tonight. He allowed David to see the top of the lineup for the third time. But this goes back to what we mentioned yesterday on the show, that you can do it when you have a comfortable lead like that. Because if he got through that, if he was able to get through that, then you could ask him to go to the 5th inning and get through 5, because he's facing the lower part of the order, lower leverage spot. It is still an 8-2 game at that point. And so it becomes a lot easier to let him see a lineup for the third time. So again, that was like what we were talking about yesterday, about there are moments where it's more okay to let a pitcher see a lineup for the third time. I thought he tried to steal outs the right way today with David Peterson. It didn't work out, and he had a very quick trigger to get Reed Garrett in there, and then Garrett gave them important outs. Did give up the 3 runs, though, and then they had to turn to Stanek and Diaz to bail them out, and Stanek and Diaz did their job. The New York Mets will be playing at least one more baseball game. They will be going back to LA, and they will be handing it off to their ace. We will talk about that here on the other side. PrizePicks, the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out even if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. PrizePicks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions like Taco Tuesday, where they discount select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. PrizePicks during football season, the best way to win real money. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today, use code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 instantly when you play $5. PrizePicks, run your game. The New York Mets will be handing the baton off to their ace, Sean Manaea, in Game 6 of this series to try to keep their season alive and to force a Game 7 in L.A., what would be Monday night. But the Mets took care of business at home. They forced this series back to L.A., and I can't help but sit here and think about this thought permeated a lot of my thinking today in the lead up to the game, because we laid it out last night. I tried to give as much of a rallying cry as I can of what the plan, what the path was for this team to complete this improbable comeback. I asked if they had one more magic trick left in them. Well, they completed Act 1 of what is going to need to be a 3-act magic trick. One of those really long, drawn-out magic tricks that just when you think the trick is over, there's another part of the trick. Well, guess what? Act 1 of the trick is over. Act 2 will take place on Sunday, and the Mets are turning it over to their ace, their best magician, and the guy who already in this series has shown to be the best pitcher this team has left in that starting rotation. But I couldn't help but think about this. If the Mets win today and they force it to a Game 6, I can't really complain, because that means the New York Mets are putting their season on the line. Their season was on the line today. They checked the box. They did what they needed to do. But now they are passing the baton with their season on the line to their best starting pitcher. And I don't know if there's any fan of any team in sports that wouldn't want, with their season on the line, their best players in the most important spots. And so if in the middle of June, if in the middle of July, in the middle of August, during the run in September, if I would have told you the Mets are going to make a deep run in October, and I didn't give you all the specifics of everything that's gone on the last couple of weeks, I said the New York Mets were facing elimination, and the Mets had Sean Manaea on the mound, you would have signed on the dotted line for that. You would have signed up immediately. You would have asked, where can I get my tickets? I don't care if it's a road game or a home game. What time? What place do I need to be there? So yes, it is dire. Yes, the Mets' backs are still against the wall. I get it. But the New York Mets, with their season on the line, will be handing it off to the person that we all want the ball in their hand. He has been the ace. He has been our ace this season. He has been the player, the starter, the pitcher that the New York Mets have needed him to be over and over and over again. And with the season on the line, with an opportunity to force it into a winner-take-all Game 7, the New York Mets are going to hand the ball to Sean Manaea. The other parts of this series are disappointing. All the blowouts against the Mets are disappointing. But I don't know how much we can argue with the New York Mets, their season on the line. One game to keep it alive, handing the ball to Sean Manaea. So they won the hard one. Today is the hard one in the 3-act magic trick. This one's the hardest one because it's easiest to be defeated today after what happened last night. They weren't defeated. They now have all the confidence. They have all the momentum. They have pushed most of the pressure onto the Dodgers because the Dodgers are going to a bullpen game more than likely. I'm going to check to see if they've announced anything. I don't know if they would have done so, but it's more than likely a bullpen game. So the New York Mets, just like they found themselves in Game 2 of this series, a bullpen game for the Dodgers and Sean Manaea for the New York Mets. Sign me up. Again, I don't know what's going to happen on Sunday. They might lose. They might dominate and force a Game 7. All I know is the Mets are sending to the mound the person I want to be going to war with, going to battle with the season on the line. I don't know if the Dodgers can say the same thing. And so let's ride. Let's get excited. The New York Mets season is not over. They showed one last bit of fight. That fight might be able to continue. And we have one more game to discuss here on the show. Make sure you are subscribed to the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel. If you want even more thoughts and you are joining us on the YouTube side of things, make sure you're subscribed to the Locked On Mets podcast feed. I was texting Ryan throughout the game. I'm actually out of here to go coach a softball game here in a little bit, and the game was running a little long. Ryan almost had to pull double duty here and host on both channels, but we were texting back and forth throughout the game, and we were talking about just hand the ball to Manaea, get the ball to Sean, and give this team a chance. And the resiliency from this team continued to show. So make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel, that you turn on that notification bell. We will be back here after Game 6. Like I said, win, lose, or draw. I was preparing the thank yous all day. The New York Mets said, Chris, hold the thank yous. We still got one more game to play. So the thank yous will wait. The season will continue. And the New York Mets and Sean Manaea will take the field on Sunday with a chance to force a Game 7. Sign me up. See ya on Sunday, everybody.